Do it on the fly. All right. Here we go on a Sunday morning in Las Vegas, post-pandemic, post-Christmas Sunday morning. I can't hear myself, but I think that's normal, right? You can hear me? As long as you can hear me, that's all that matters. All right. That means everyone can hear me. Hey, listen, it's just after 8 o'clock. I'm Brian Feldman, and this is Outta Line. And first and foremost, Merry belated Christmas. If you are listening for the first time, we are live, same time every week on Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM at 1340 AM, flagship of the Vegas Golden Knights. Today, we are at Kickers Gaming and Sports Bar at 931 North Las Vegas Boulevard, just down the road from the old Cashman Field. Kickers will be our home for a while because due to COVID-19 protocol, all live shows have been kicked out of the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio until further notice. So come on down and join us. During the show, Kickers is giving away free donuts and orange juice and offering most of Bloody Mary specials. Come on down. We're going to start this big thing starting in a couple weeks. Have family and friends down next week. But, man, definitely come on down and start joining us right after the new year. It's going to be a great time. We'll pack the place. And, again, free donuts and OJ every Sunday while they last when you come on down. So, definitely check that out. The we, once again, includes co-host Caleb Herring, the last UNLV quarterback to lead the Rebels to a bowl game. No preps today?
I mean, I want to.
Okay.
Is it okay if I do it?
Yeah, of course. There you go. All right. Listen, Caleb's back after a week off to spend a portion of the holidays with his family in California. Not here because, and you are hearing this right, because of a snowstorm in the mountains, and the mountain pass is kind of blocked off. But he is still handling his business from his home in Pahrump, the only intern in the world with his own theme music.
The Wiz!
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
I will never, ever get enough of that theme music. It's the best. All right. Wiz, stay safe. We're glad you're there and everything's going well. But that is Spencer the Wiz Ostrowski. Spencer is also our social media director and now has his own sports talk show, delivering sports Friday nights at 7 on KSHP, which is 1400 AM on your radio dial. Also back in the studio, Residential Bancorp studio producer, future WWE star, Dino DeMond.
I finally got you to get it right.
I did.
It's like training a dog to do a new trick, but the dog is old, so the dog has a hard time learning.
You don't have to get out the carpet cleaner today.
But you're old, so you learned a new trick, and I'm proud of myself because I trained you. I'm I'm the Brian Whisperer. I'll take it.
Whisper got it done, but it is Dino DeMond Cotton. The show is also streaming on the LV Sports Network, and you can watch the show on Facebook Live. The page is called Outta Line. That's OUTTALINE. You can also follow the show on Instagram and on Twitter. It's at Outta Line Fox LV. That's at Outta Line Fox LV. And since we are live, your questions and calls are welcome. So the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio line is 702-876-1340.
Hi, this is Bubby, and it's time for What's on Tap.
Yeah, What's on Tap is brought to you by Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. If you're in need of refinancing the home you already own, you want to purchase a new home, definitely give them a call. First and foremost, they can help you out. You can check them out at residentialbancorp.com as well. On tap, we're going to start off. We are again live at Kickers, 931. That is North Las Vegas Boulevard. And again, we're just down the road from the old Cashman Field, the Neon Graveyard. Great place to check it out. And some of the best food trucks in the world on the corner up here, not too far. I'm going there for breakfast when I get done here. But definitely come on down and check us out. So joining us in a second, Jennifer Metzger. She's one of the owners. Last week you had Dylan Reese on with us. And we'll talk about Kickers, man. Again, our home throughout this pandemic, it looks like, for a while. Also, the Golden Knights do have their schedule. It is in place. A 56-game abbreviated schedule. We'll talk about that, their chances, and it's going to be interesting, but they start up in just a couple weeks, so get ready for that. Also, UNLV basketball, man. Caleb and I are going to talk about that. It is going to be over a month in between games. And unfortunately for them, after dropping their first 5, they won one, and a big win against, even though it's a bad Kansas State team, it's still a very big win for UNLV. And now they're off for a month and a half. So they start up. They're supposed to get back to play, I think, on the 7th. And that's going to be a 2 games in a row in Colorado State. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. And also, the NCAA is down to, it gets it down to their Final Four. There's bowl games going on all over the place, but the 4 teams vying for a national title, they're in place. We kind of knew who they'd be last week. We'll talk about that a little bit. And also, this year, there has been a couple of teams that have been in a very long playoff drought. It's amazing the Lions are not amongst the dubious teams that have that distinction, but 2 of them, the top 2, should be off the snide this year and both make the playoffs. We'll talk about that as well. And S and BSC, it's going to be a tough segment today. I mean, the Raiders literally blew another game yesterday, and yesterday they blew it on a number of defense, special teams, coaching. It was bad. We'll talk about that as well. And our picks of the week, man, we were hot last week, 4-1. The only one that lost is the Wiz, and the Wiz is the only one that is not in contention for the regular season crown. We could all technically tie for the regular season crown, but we take it all the way through the Super Bowl. But the last 2 weeks we've been hot with our picks. So if you're betting today before the games, stick around and check that out. Listen, that is What's on Tap. Once again, brought to you by a title sponsor, Residential Bank Corp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. And Wiz, do we have Jennifer queued up or no? Do we got to bring her over here? Oh, look at that. She's right over here. We're all social distancing. She's even got the mask on. I probably should be wearing mine, but since I just tested negative 2 days ago, I think I'm okay. I've kind of been quarantining. Anyway, Jennifer, we love it here, and I like your backdrop. Look at the backdrop. You see the backdrop, Caleb?
The backdrop is nice. I want that in my room. Can I get a copy of that wallpaper in that backdrop so I can see it in my room?
Yeah, we can definitely hook you up with a couple of the artists local artists that put it up for us.
That's dope. Local art. I was going to ask how much of this is local touch, but that's awesome. Like local artists, how much have they been an influence? I mean, right in the heart. I mean, near the arts district and things like that down here at Kickers. How much have local artists impacted the way this place is set up? Because it's a pretty dope setup.
Yeah, it's 3 local artists that do probably 90% of all the murals that are around downtown and in the arts district. And it's Tone Castle, Snipped, and You Killed Him First, and they put together this great mural. We wanted all to represent all of the local Las Vegas teams. So we have the Aviation, the Golden Knights, the Lights, the Aces, UNLV, and the Raiders.
Killed Him First. I love those names. What great artist names. It's awesome. It is a really cool decor in here. Come on down. Like I said, there's a dozen donuts sitting out there on the counter waiting for you. But Jennifer, really cool place. Why did you and Dylan, I might have asked Dylan this, but I want your opinion, open during a pandemic? What was the thought behind that?
Well, the thought was there was no pandemic. When this dream became a vision, and by the time we opened, there was no such thing as the pandemic when this all started back in October of 2019. So we just thought, you know what, let's just keep going. It is what it is. Let's open during the pandemic and see how it goes. And thankfully, we've been open ever since. We didn't have to shut down during any of the times the governor shut the bar industry down. So, you know, the regulations have changed as far as occupancy, but, you know, we just keep going and just roll with the punches we get, but at least we're open and we can provide games of all sports for people to come enjoy.
A ton of TVs in here. They've got the social distancing for all your gaming at the bars. You've got some other tables to come enjoy. They are keeping they've got a max capacity of like 34 patrons or something like that. So they're keeping all that stuff good. Really cool. Some of the things that really keep them apart. They have a full tavern license here, meaning if you like the beers they sell, they could actually sell them to you to take home with you, which is kind of a unique thing. That's kind of cool, Jennifer.
Yeah, we're one of the very few bars that have a full tavern license. So if you are come in and love one of our craft beers that we do have, you are able to take one home, a 6-pack home, whatever you'd like. to enjoy at your house. But we do have a license that we are able to sell packaged liquor.
It's hard for me as a Green Bay Packer fan who did not grow up in Milwaukee or anywhere near Milwaukee to find other Green Bay Packer patrons. So I'm looking around and I'm noticing that there's a definite Green Bay Packer theme. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a Packer bar on Sundays, because I would love to bring my collection of fans here. What can you tell me a little bit about the Packer connection and why there's so much Packer love going in here? Because I'm loving it.
Bottom line is I was born and raised in Wisconsin. So this is the first sports bar that I've done. I've done other bars downtown area, but this is the first sports bar. So why not bring my roots down and make it a Packer bar? A lot of our banners are from Lambeau Field from my father that date back probably in the 80s, if not longer. So real authentic banners, not off of Amazon or anything like that. So yeah, and you know, fortunately, Packers are a great team and have been for many years, and so why not, you know, add a Packer bar to the area?
No, which I think I mentioned, is from Berkeley, Michigan, like myself, a suffering Detroit Lions fan. So when it came to whether we theme this bar, the Packers or the Lions, I think it's an obvious choice. If you theme it the Lions, it will be a pandemic forever in here. Okay, so probably a wise move to make it the Packers, who do know how to win. As a matter of fact, chances are they're going to be the number one seed in the NFC this year, which means that there'll be the odds-on favorite to go to another Super Bowl. Got to be good for you. And, you know, we'll talk about him in the future. But Aaron Rodgers, you know, talk about quarterbacks that have made a comeback. I don't know how people thought this guy was washed up, but whenever you tell a superstar they're washed up, and I'm not going to say Caleb Herring was a superstar, but I told him he was washed up in his senior year at UNLV, and he just came out and took him to a bowl game. So sometimes when you light a fire under the ass of an athlete, a D1 or a professional athlete, you're going to see some things happen. And Aaron Rodgers, man, did he do that this year or what?
Yeah, he definitely did. And I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to come watch the playoff run here at Kickers, honestly. Like, this is a really cool spot. It's my first time being here. I know you were here last week. You've been here before. But it's a really cool spot, Jim. And I appreciate the idea of bringing your hometown roots here. I appreciate you even sticking with it and opening a bar during the pandemic. I mean, it's not easy, I imagine. But what are you excited about most when this thing gets kicking off and rolling and things get back to normal the most? What are you excited for, and what kind of things can you bring to the community with this spot?
Well, our vision was, when we first opened, was to have all sports. You know, we have the NFL ticket. So we wanted to show all events, including UFC. We just recently showed the Tyson fight, and due to the changes in the occupancy for from the governor, we were only able to have 34 people. But I tell you what, our vision's going to be strong. Our phone was ringing off the hook for 24 hours nonstop with people trying to make reservations to come see the fight. We got the McGregor fight coming up in January. And we're just going to promote. All we can do is just promote. So by the time that we are full occupancy and ready to go full steam ahead, we'll have the food trucks out front, and people will help us get the name out, and that's all we can wish for.
Jennifer, and again, you brought something up and you're talking about the fights, Caleb. They show the fights in here, an opportunity to come down, see the fights in a quaint environment, 17 TVs around the bar. The sound is on NFL Sundays. It is a game, exciting atmosphere, and I can't wait till things get back to normal, just for the sake of getting back to normal, but to see what's going to happen to Kickers and how this bar is going to morph after the pandemic. It's going to be pretty cool, Jennifer. We are honored and blessed that you allowed us to come down here so we don't all have to be sitting at home doing the show, because they were trying to set up mini studios in all of our houses so we can all work at home. Some of the hosts are doing that. We really wanted to be out and about and still keep some semblance of normality with our show and with what's going on. So we appreciate you and Dylan very much for having us down there. And I will stomach walking into a Green Bay bar, but that's why I'm wearing my old Outlaws Las Vegas, my He Hate Me jersey, because I know I'm sitting in a Green Bay bar. But other than that, hey, we're so pleased and blessed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Glad to have you guys.
Absolutely. Well, Caleb, let's Spence, hit the nightcap, man.
Hockey players, as you know, are warriors. They don't give up. They come to play every game.
It's time for Nightcap, a cupful of the Vegas Golden Knights. From highlights to interviews to special events, the puck starts here.
Last Wednesday, the National Hockey League announced the Vegas Golden Knights schedule for the 2020-21 regular season. We might as well call it the 21 regular season because the 20 regular season ended not too long ago with the Stanley Cup Finals happening in the fall this year because of the pandemic, obviously. Well, this game, the way it's going to work, the Golden Knights will play 56-game schedule, which will feature division-only play. And that's really weird. The regular season, throughout the regular season, Vegas will face each team in division a total of 8 times during the year. So it's kind of cool. It's like the old Major League Baseball with the American and National League where teams won't play each other if they're from different divisions. Really unique. But the Golden Knights will open their season at home against the Anaheim Ducks at T-Mobile Arena on Thursday, January 14th, and will also face off the Ducks 2 days later on January 16th at T-Mobile. There's going to be a hockey season, Caleb. Life goes on.
Yeah, it's going to be cool because I think the division only kind of schedule makes it so there's no surprise in the playoffs. I don't think, there's the opportunity for anybody to kind of beef up. They're playing in a good division to kind of make playoff push as far as their overall record by beating up on weaker teams in a different division. I think that the teams that are weak in the division will lose out and not make the playoffs because they're weak. And then the teams that are on top of the division will rise to the top. So I think the playoff picture at the end of all this may look a lot cleaner as far as the best teams in each division don't have to. There's not going to be a lot of slack in the playoffs by other teams that maybe shouldn't have made it from a certain division just based on regular season fluff in the schedule won't be able to make it in because the division winners basically will be in the playoffs, and that's the most important thing. And top to bottom, you're going to have a better feel for the playoffs. Fortunately, the way the NFL was structured, this wasn't the case because the NFC will still get in, which they stink. But we'll see how they play out with the playoff structure for the NHL. I'm excited to see how far the season gets without any interruptions this year because the NBA as well as the NHL have a chance, are the first teams to really start a season. I don't want to call it the post-pandemic era, but like with the vaccine rolling out and things like that. So maybe not as many interruptions as far as getting through a full season. So if they get through all 56 games, that would still be a decent schedule. I don't think there'll be fatigue around the NHL as far as a longer schedule. But 56 games is respectable. Hopefully they play them all, and they're not like the NCAA, which is had games canceled left and right. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what the Golden Knights can do. There's been a lot of changes with retirement, with trades, with acquisitions on the offseason. So we'll see. The Knights have had a resilient kind of demeanor as far as their ability to compete come playoff time and be a legitimate playoff contender every year so far. So hopefully they can continue that, but it's definitely going to be a new look with some guys that are expected to make big strides in their career with like Theodore and things like that. There's going to be some expectations for the roster that's coming back. So we'll see. I'm excited about it. I'm just excited to have hockey. Hopefully we'll get to go to T-Mobile and enjoy that again at some point during the 56 games.
Yeah, it'll be strange.
If they don't get through an entire season without having some type of disruption. I will be shocked if that doesn't happen, Caleb. Even though there's the vaccine, you're still seeing disruptions. We'll see how that plays out going forward. But you're right. This is a very different Vegas Golden Knights team. There's still $1 million over the cap, which you're going to have to correct. Talking about moving a few players. We'll have information as that goes on. But without question, the signing of Alec Pietrangelo and having Shea Theodore, who has stepped up to be one of the top probably 7 or 8 defensemen in the National Hockey League, eventually maybe the defensive face of the National Hockey League because he is that good. It's going to be an exciting season this year. And I look for him to compete. I really do, with Leonard and Marc-Andre Fleury back in net if he stays. Wow. They've got potential again, and I've loved it ever since they've been here. They have had a team that has potential to win the Stanley Cup, and that's all you can ask for, a team that's competitive, and it has been thrilling. It would be nice to see the Raiders become that team here in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Moving over, Caleb, UNLV basketball canceled several games due to COVID-19. Even Coach Otzelberger, of course, tested positive about a week and a half ago. The last game was actually their first win versus Kansas State. granted, it's the worst Kansas State team, I think, in the history of that school, but it doesn't matter. It's a win over a D1 conference program that has put some good teams together. And that's their only win. And that, but yet they lost to Montana State in the season opener, down by more than 20 points most of the second half, ended up losing by 13, and then also lost to like Davison. I mean, is this week off or month and a half off, Caleb, a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's a good thing. I think for where the team is, I think, well, let me step back. There's different ways to be off. Like if your team is decimated by COVID, you're not practicing much because you can't with the rules and things like that, especially in the Mountain West. They're probably one of the more strict conferences as far as what you can and can't do when there's COVID amok in your program. So I don't know if that's necessarily the issue where they just can't practice because nobody's available. So, yeah, it sucks. The roster isn't very they don't have a lot of chemistry. So anytime that they have off the practice without being actually in the pressure of a game is I think valuable if they use it appropriately, obviously. But I think it is important. I think it's important for anybody to be able to have time to just build as a team. Now, UNLV has this amount of time off, and it affected the football team as well. Just having games canceled, you can't say it helped because if you look at how the football team responded when they first got back on the field, they laid an absolute egg in their first game back after the layoff. So, I mean, it can be helpful to just have time to practice, but who knows how much they're actually able to practice. I was one of the people when Coach K earlier came out from Duke and said that we shouldn't even be playing basketball anymore. And you see what happened with the players at Florida who collapsed during the game. And people haven't verified that it was because of COVID issues, but I mean, we can all kind of guesstimate that it was. And maybe even just feel, even if it wasn't, we feel like it was related to COVID and his prior positive test. But the idea that the college basketball season with less resources than the NBA or the NFL or other organizations or leagues is trying to push through so many cancellations. It's not just UNLV, but so many. It kind of stinks. And if you're a team like UNLV, who really at this point isn't playing for much, I mean, that they're not, based on what we've seen from the team, they're not making any sort of push to a tournament if there is one. They're not going to be at the end of the Mountain West season when we're talking about the Mountain West Championship, at least with what we've seen. It has to feel like this is for no reason. So at some point, I think the rest of the coaching world will start to echo those sentiments. We'll see if Otterberger has the same feeling as far as why are we even doing this? Why are we trying to play? Can we even get better from playing games? Would it be better to just practice amongst ourselves and get better as a team and build some chemistry? Hopefully that's what they're doing during this month off. We don't know if they can, but hopefully they are doing that. And then it can be a benefit to have this kind of team chemistry building type practices while you're having a layoff from game time.
I do think that, if they don't get to practice, Caleb, that hurts them. But the other side of it, I really think that it helps them because they've got a lot of games still to play. Unlike football, it's such a short schedule. But in basketball, you have so many more games to play. And now they've got a 5-game sample size to really look at films and see where they've broken down, where they're slacking. Maybe see why Mbake Zhang turned off part of that motor that really was moving him to being a solid D1 player. Maybe to find out why Bryce Hamilton isn't clicking on all the cylinders he was clicking on last year, to find out why Marvin Coleman still hasn't put on a uniform this year. Now he has, but the way he's played compared to the way he finished last season, not the same. And guys like Caleb Grill fitting into the system, maybe this time off will help that. And I really do. I think that it's a good thing when it comes to that. I think that you do want to see them get better. And I do think this team has potential. I'll tell you one game they're not unhappy they missed, Caleb. They did have to play San Diego State, who is looking as good as anyone this year, number 18 ranked right now in the country, but with Mitchell, who is probably one of the premier point guards in all of America this year, and the defense that is put together by Brian Dutcher over there at San Diego State. UNLV probably happy they don't have to play that game coming back off of this thing. And their first 2 games will both be at Colorado State. Very winnable games for even a bad UNLV team.
You missed a great opportunity for a pun there. I thought you were going to say why Caleb Grill isn't cooking. No, that was cheap. That was. I can do better than that. Anyway, no, I agree. I think there's games that you, if you're being honest with yourself, those games that are canceled that you're probably looking at like, wow, kind of glad we dodged that bullet. I mean, North Carolina was probably one of the games too, but I mean, we had to play that and take that weapon. never thought Montana State would have been one of those games, but looking back, hindsight's 2020, probably wish they didn't start that game either. But I mean, any opportunity to play for a competitor is going to be missed. I think like if you don't have the opportunity to play, I think the guys in the locker room shouldn't have that feeling. Maybe we should. Maybe the analysts or the people watching the teams or the boosters who support the team, maybe those people are happy that, man, we didn't have to see that, a dumpster fire on the court, so to speak. I'm not saying they're a dumpster fire, but the players in the locker room, they itch for those opportunities to prove themselves against the San Diego States, against the North Carolinas. They should at least, and that should be the attitude. And I think hopefully that is what they're feeling. Like they don't want to miss the game against San Diego State, or they didn't want to, because it's a chance to prove themselves against the number 18 team in the country, like you said. But it's crazy that San Diego State always seems to just be there, like in basketball. You talk about building programs, and like look at like Kentucky and
basketball culture.
Yeah, the culture is solid, and I think UNLV had that for a while, and it's fading. I mean, we're still like UNLV's clinging to the days of Tark. Like it's crazy how much
I hate
that's
to
still
tell you,
relevant as the early 90s.
the basketball culture.
Sure. I think got buried with Tark. I mean, because it is just non-existent. And one of the things, as much as I joke around about it, Caleb, the pandemic prevents people, because our state is not allowing any fans in facilities where live games are going on. And that is probably, and I'm being somewhat sarcastic, but I'm being real, probably the best thing could happen to UNLV, because you don't need recruits seeing how empty the Thomas and Mack would be again this year. If this is the product they're going to see on the floor, you're going to see another empty house. And as much as it sickens me, because as Caleb's pointed out, UNLV is kind of like a glorified community college because of the lack of community within itself. And so I understand that. And when you don't fill when you fill the Thomas and Mack, it is as electrifying as any facility in the country, in my opinion. When it's empty, it is very noticeable and it's bad. And with the pandemic, you're seeing it all over the country. So really, bad UNLV teams benefit from this, as you'll never know how many people would have showed and wouldn't have if you base it on what we've seen in the past. Not very many. So that is going to help, it's not going to help them, but I'm saying it's good for them this year. But this team, Caleb, that we've seen so far, as you mentioned, the sample size, it doesn't look good. I'm hoping that the time off will be used by Otzelberger and the rest of them. Even if they can't practice a ton, you can still do a lot of virtual conversations, communications, show film to them, break down film with the players virtually and still show them what they need to be corrected based on the sample size that they have. I'm definitely worried about it. And we talked about this last week on the show, Caleb, and I'm not going to pull any punches. Okay. The show's called Out of Line for a reason. I mean, please. And again, this is such a touchy subject because we do get in trouble a little bit for this, but the bottom line is, what kind of job do you think Desiree Reed-Francois is doing at UNLV? Be honest, man.
Honestly, I think when you look at what the athletic director is supposed to do, I think she's positioned things to improve the culture, I guess, or the expectations around sports. I think her job is not necessarily to win games. She's not the one who determines wins or losses. She creates an environment for winning and losing, or losing, rather. And with the way she's hired, I think, which would be the biggest measure of her success, quote unquote, for whatever the reason, she's landed a quality football hire, which is the priority at any athletic institution or program, is to have football first. So I think you can see kind of that has been her priority with both the pay of Marcus Arroyo and just the fact that she went out after Marcus Arroyo and that she was able to land it. You look at the coaching staff for football and you say, like, wow, all of those guys are Power 5 guys. The fact that she was able to build that staff with a losing football team at UNLV that hasn't been to a bowl game since 2013 or 2014, whatever year that was, that I took them there. But like what the idea that she was able to bring it, you can't say that she's done a bad job necessarily. What she's been able to, the program is in a better place athletically than it was when she took over. How much of that, the question being, how much of that is necessarily her doing, or how much of that was the previous head football coach? Because there's no doubt that he had an impact on where
Don't
the
give her
program
the credit
is.
for the Fertitta Center.
I'm not going to give it to her, but
I'll still give it to Tony Sanchez
yeah.
and his relationship with the Fertitta family.
Absolutely, there's that. Then just the like I said, moving forward with the hires, that's probably the biggest thing that you can grade her on. the Marcus Arroyo hire, there's no doubt that was a good hire for UNLV football and for UNLV athletics at the time. Otzelberger maybe a little bit more of a question mark as far as his merit and what he did to deserve the hiring, but I wouldn't say she's done a bad job. I think she's done a good job. I don't know how long her stint will be here, whether it's because of aspirations to go elsewhere or because of a desire to have her removed. But I think she's done a good job so far, and I don't think we can critique her based on the performance of the players on the court necessarily. That's going to come down more to the coaches and the individual players that we actually have at the university.
Politically
said. What I'm going to say is this, okay? Keith Whitfield has a job in front of him, and he needs to look at the way this university is being run athletically and what are the expectations. I am sorry, but I will say this again. I understand, and I do. Caleb enlightened me on, from an athlete's perspective, what it is like to attend UNLV and to consider attending UNLV. And I get it. It is not your typical college atmosphere. It's broken up. You can't keep saying it's Las Vegas. The kids are under, in most cases, 21 years old. So what the hell do they get to do in Vegas anyways? It's almost like it's an adult town. And even though they're adults, they're young adults, not of legal age. So what can they do? That's not the most appealing thing, saying coming to Las Vegas. Next is you have a media now with the social media in play that really rags on the university and its players. And you see a coach, a head football coach in Marcus Arroyo, blocking a sportscaster. Now, I'm not going to say the guy who was talking the crap about UNLV was right and that he wasn't overblown. And sometimes it seemed like he was engulfed with ridiculing UNLV. But I will say this, that with that, why is the coach blocking him? We know coaches pay attention to the media. They say they don't, but they do. Okay, of course they do. But you're not supposed to admit it. And by blocking an individual media member, you are 100% saying, I pay attention to everything, and fueling all of our fire. That was a mistake, and I think Coach Arroyo's probably been told that was a mistake. But when I say Keith Whitfield has a decision to make, here's the deal. We are going to need, when I say we, I'm calling myself a UNLV faithful. I'm not an alumni, obviously, but they're going to need a new athletic director here soon. She's not getting the job done. And I said this last week. I never thought this would come out of my mouth. I appreciate what Caleb is saying. And again, I still think it's a political statement, my opinion. Tina Kunzer-Murphy did a better job. I really believe she did. She was, you know why? She was a UNLV person. She was somebody that bled UNLV. She had been here. She had history with the university. She was vested in the university. And that's why I think she cared more. She just wasn't cut out for that position. It wasn't her. But because of her effort and her heart and desire to succeed, I think she did a better job. Maybe the advice might be for Keith Whitfield. Caleb's working on getting back on, so I'll say this, and I'm sure you'll agree, and you're hearing me, though. You know what they need to do? They need to hire the next athletic director that doesn't have a hyphenated last name. Maybe let's try somebody with two names instead of three. I don't have another answer than that. But this time around, make sure it's somebody that is not. And here I am, like she's gone. I know she's still part of the facility, and I understand. But she applied for the UCLA job, and then she comes out and says, "I'm pulling my name out of the hat." You didn't pull your name out of the hat or out of contention or into. You weren't getting hired. You knew it, and that's the real. Come on. Desiree, we know that's the real deal. So again, I'm going to leave this alone from that point on. I don't want to sit here and not trying to bash UNLV. I am trying to bash a system that needs to be corrected, a culture that needs to be recreated, reinvented. That's what I'm preaching for. And again, I don't want to bash them. You don't think we as sportscasters and people in this town want them to win? It's more to talk about. It's more viewing on our city. It's positivity. That's all anybody wants here. Nobody gets enjoyment. Well, maybe there's a few people that do get enjoyment out of ripping on them. I'm not one of them. I'd love to see them do well and wear UNLV attire to every single show. Listen, we're going to move on from that one. We'll see what happens there. And real quick, while Caleb wants to take a break, Damon, can you give us a 2-minute break? Do you got one in there so he can get lit back up again? Spence, how can I know? Are you with us, Spence, at all?
I can play a spot. Just give me a couple seconds. It'll take.
Okay, Spencer, while we're waiting a couple seconds for Spencer to play a spot here so Caleb can reel it up here. Hey, this is why we're working out the kinks before we invite all you guys down. So, okay, go ahead, Spence. You got it? I don't know if we're playing a spot or not now. Hey, if you own or plan to own a home, listen up. I'm Brian Feldman, host of Outta Line on Fox Sports Radio, and today I'm talking Residential Bancorp, a mortgage company with licensed pros taught to treat every client exactly as they would want to be treated. At Residential Bancorp, they offer a wide variety of mortgage programs and a speedy process. From the time your application is taken until your loan funds, your loan officer will keep you informed throughout the entire process, and that process can take as little as 2 weeks. At Residential Bancorp, we offer the standard conventional FHA and VA. We have down payment assistance, Homes for Heroes, Teachers Grant, self-employed, foreign nationals, and pretty much every mortgage program offered in the state. When I'm not on the radio, I'm a loan officer at Residential Bancorp, and I'd love to meet you. The office is located in Las Vegas at 3068 East Sunset between Eastern and Pecos. Come on in and let's get you approved today. Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. Brian Feldman, NMLS 116-2258. Louis Galindo, NMLS 1455715. Branch NMLS 120894. Corporate NMLS 210853. Equal housing lender. All right, Spence, we back?
Yeah, we're back.
We're back, huh? Give me a thumbs up or
Yeah,
something.
no,
Yeah,
we're on. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, we're back.
No, I can stay on with me, man.
Okay.
Caleb's working on it. He's almost done, so you
All
can
right.
get on here. Real quick, Spencer. I'll let you talk for Caleb while he works on getting us set up. NCAA football. We've got the Final Four teams. We talked about it last year. No surprise predictions. We didn't play the role of Nostradamus as we predicted Alabama number 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, and Notre Dame number 4. I think the appropriate 4 teams are in it. Unfortunately, I don't think Notre Dame is going to be able to compete with Alabama. They weren't able to compete with Clemson. And I do believe from top to bottom, Alabama is the best team in the country. So if they're better than Clemson, I think Notre Dame's in for a long day next weekend. Ohio State's the one is the one intangible that I can't talk about. We've seen such a small sample size. The Big Ten, obviously not one of their best seasons in the Big Ten. They don't look like a power conference, but Ohio State 6-0. They get the Big Ten championship with 5 wins, win that to give them their 6th win, and they get to, their reward is to play Clemson in the national semifinal. And Caleb's on now with us. He's back also, so pop him up too, and stay with us, Spence. You can join in this segment also. But since I was talking to you first about it, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, we did see Notre Dame beat Clemson earlier in the year. I love EJ, the backup quarterback for Clemson, but he's not Trevor Lawrence, and we definitely saw a difference a week ago with Trevor Lawrence at the helm as opposed to EJ.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, this guy's one of the most highly coveted prospects to come out of college since like Peyton Manning, probably Andrew Luck. I guess you could make an argument for it. But to talk about the selection for a second, because I know it's a little controversial or whatever, this is a money decision. They put the 4 biggest schools are going to put the most eyes on the screen. Whether or not an undefeated team should theoretically make the top 4, probably, but does anyone want to see a 30-point line for a college football playoff game? There's something just very off about that. I'm not really sold on Ohio State just yet. I mean, I know it's weird that have a 6-win team make the college football playoffs, but we're in a weird season and everything like that. I totally expect Alabama to just wash through this entire college football playoffs. I don't think it's going to be very close, but hey, you never know what can happen.
Caleb, good point, Spencer. And I'll tell you, Caleb, with these games going on and the Final Four that we see, and Spencer's right, it is all about money, but realistically, how good is it for college football to see Notre Dame in the Final Four, even though they finished up as number 4? Joining the ACC was a real smart move for them because as an independent, it was going to be real hard to get into the Final Four with 5 power division conferences. So you got to become one. And Notre Dame does it. And to their credit, look at this, an 11-win season, a 1 loss. You got to give them a hell of a year for them. But now they go up against Alabama. But again, how good is it for college football?
I think it's great. It's the best thing that come out of Notre Dame since Rudy. And I don't say that jokingly. Like, literally, that's all Notre Dame has really given us. Since the SC Notre Dame rivalry kind of fell off. The Bush push and all that kind of stuff. As a USC fan, I grew up a USC fan. So that's my only memory of Notre Dame is that rivalry game, which the independent nature of Notre Dame allowed them to have games like that. So that probably contributed to why they were never in the Final Four or never in contention for national championships, right? So I think the idea that they latched onto the ACC, which, by the way, is probably the easier of the conferences to get into the finals with. I mean,
leave it to Notre Dame.
Outside of Clemson, right? There's nobody in the ACC that's really at this point in time. I know the ACC has had its moments in history as far as football goes. But
It's a
right
basketball
now,
conference.
It's a basketball conference, no doubt about it. So I don't think it's a coincidence that they picked the ACC, right? Big 10, Big 12 could have picked one of them or joined the SEC. No, that wasn't going to happen, right? So I think it worked out well for Notre Dame to latch onto the ACC. But I do think that of the 4 teams, the biggest question mark is around Notre Dame. Remember the last time they made it to the Final Four, they got creamed by Alabama, and it was not even like competitive at all. And it would have probably been just as good to put like the Coastal Carolina team at, if you think about it like that year, or UCF at that time, where not even UCF at that time, but where there was that blowout. Like nobody wants to see a blowout in the Final Four, and it's happened I think just about every year where the first round game turns into a blowout. I remember Oregon decimating Florida State with the Jameis Winston year. Alabama, like I said, with Notre Dame. Oklahoma, who's been blown out in the Final Four before. So, I mean, that's the hope, is that you get a field of 4 teams that can be competitive. I think the last game of the season, the last time we saw Notre Dame, and the way that Clemson, I'm going to touch on this real quick, because Clemson was not just missing Trevor Lawrence in that game. I am on the Trevor Lawrence is good, but not as good as hyped train. Like, he's good, but Clemson didn't lose to Notre Dame the first time around because their quarterback was injured, right? Like, DJ did a great job. They're missing like 6 starters on defense, whether at the beginning of the game or throughout the game that dropped off. I mean, it had the defensive coordinator's son out there at middle linebacker, who's a freshman. I mean, so those kind of things contribute to the loss.
If the defense is healthy, EJ Uwe probably takes them.
Probably would be a Heisman frontrunner if the team was healthy, right?
With
the numbers he put up in the 2 games that he played.
He might be in the future.
And I'm not going to. Absolutely, I think so. But Notre Dame being in the Final Four, I think, is probably the best thing for Notre Dame. I think they do have a big fan base, which is like nationally, like Notre Dame has a national following that helps. And I think whether the committee wants to admit it or not, that plays a factor into why they select these 4 teams.
For sure.
Like that's the eyeball test. Like, are people watching? That's what they're talking. It's like a Nielsen box. Like, are people watching?
You take Notre Dame out and you put
in, and it's a whole different dynamic. Both those teams would get blown out by Alabama, but it is just such a bigger draw. It is very unfortunate for the Cincinnati Bearcats because they had a great season. They are a D1 school, not in a Power 5 conference, but this was one of those years where it would have been maybe nice to see like a Cincinnati go when Notre Dame did lose. Texas A&M obviously not any good, so why not give Cincinnati a chance? Liberty showed, you mentioned Coastal Carolina. They showed them yesterday and took away their undefeated season. But, I wouldn't have minded seeing Cincinnati jump in and get that 4th bid.
This was the year for the NCAA to shake something up. Whether it was letting one of those Group of 5 teams
look at all the other sports there.
Yeah, whether it was getting one of the Group of 5 teams in or expanding the playoffs. Like the 4-team thing, I don't think anybody's like not going to want to make this an 18 playoff. I mean, you look at Division II; they do a playoff that's how they decide the national champion. And you have to expand the bracket a little bit to actually get an opportunity for the Cinderella story that made college football or college basketball, the Sweet 16. How many years have we looked at the Sweet 16 or the Final Four and said that team didn't belong? Nobody would have picked them to be here. It busted a lot of brackets with that. And that's the drama of college sports that we like. Open up the field a little bit. Let somebody else have a chance. I'm sick of seeing Alabama in the Final Four. As good and dominant as they are to deserve it, I'm sick of seeing.
They'll still be there, Caleb, before things happen. Because even with
letting the lesser likes in, it's different than basketball. Even though in college basketball you can have a Cinderella shock the world, you do see it. An Appalachian State beat Michigan, but again, in a college playoff setting at the end of the year, Appalachian State surprises a team like Michigan in game 1 of the season. But
I'm good because
you're gonna go to Boise State.
Not even Boise State. I'm gonna go back to UCF. When UCF was called a pretender, when they had their undefeated season, and everybody thought, they're going to play Auburn in their bowl game, and Auburn's going to show them what they blew Auburn out. They wiped the floor.
Okay?
Because football is so one and done, there's no 7-game season where the top guys always find a way to finish it out. There's absolutely opportunity for the underdog to come out and win games. Like, did anybody think that Clemson was the favorite the first time they beat Alabama? When it was Deshaun Watson, when he had the game he had against him. Was Alabama the favorite in that game? Granted, they're 2 great teams. But Was Alabama the
No, your point's taken. I still think Cincinnati would have proved why those teams don't belong in the Final Four. You still need an expanded playoff, but they would have proved it because they're not Final Four material. Spencer, hit fact this.
Fact this. If you don't like the facts, take your ass back to bed. Fact this.
Graphics. Fact. By the end of the day, the teams with the 2 longest active playoff droughts in the NFL could be over. This would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who by literally stomping the Detroit Lions yesterday, will go to the playoffs for the first time since 2007. And if the Browns win today and get a little help, they will be in the postseason for the first time since 2002, the longest active streak of a team not getting there. And of course, the number 3 team, Magnum, if you're listening, you'll like this, the 2010 Jets, but they were eliminated a long time ago. So after this season, they will become the longest standing team that hasn't made the postseason, unless, of course, the Browns collapse and don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's funny because when you look at this, you would think, obviously, with how terrible they are, that the Lions will be number 1. And I don't say that to insult you, I do. But I think the Lions, with Caldwell, right, they got to the playoffs. They just didn't win in the playoffs, which was cool. I think they wasted Matthew Stafford's career because he could have been great. He has the most fourth quarter game-winning touchdowns of any active quarterback right now. So, I mean,
yeah, 3 trips to the playoffs, 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Lions' luck, right? But we think about Tampa Bay and the drought after their Super Bowl. I know they made the playoffs since then, but the drought has been, Tampa Bay has been off the map as far as where they are with greatness. And I hate to say this, but the Tom Brady excitement and hysteria really kind of springboarded them back into the National Football League's overall picture, which is cool. I think you kind of have regions of success where there's a Northeast team, a Southwest team. There's teams all over the map as far as the reach of successful teams. You'd hate to have desolate places. At least while the Lions suck, the Packers are good, right? At least while the Northeast really doesn't have anything right now with the Patriots being out. But, I mean, with Pittsburgh, I guess, is would be considered Northeast, right? So those kind of teams, there's regions of success. But it's crazy to think. I would not have guessed that these 2 teams would have been the 2 that had the longest active playoff droughts. The Buccaneers are kind of forgotten. I don't think about them as much. And maybe that's my fault. But you just don't think about the Bucs as far. But talk about Tom Brady and what he did, setting records against the poor Lions. 150 yards, I think, in the first quarter passing, which is a record for him, the most he's ever done. So the Buccaneers have shown glimpses throughout the season of being an actual Super Bowl contender. This, I think they're finishing on the right path. Granted, they have one of the weakest schedules to finish the season off. The easiest schedule, I should say, to finish the season off. But the NFC is going to be crowded in the playoffs. So getting there is one thing. And you talk about Lions. Getting there is one thing. Winning there is going to be completely different. Outside of whoever wins the NFC East, there's going to be no gimmies in the NFC. By the time the playoff field shakes out, I don't think there's going to be any gimmies in the NFC. The AFC, kind of competitive for their standards, but I think the NFC, outside of Kansas City and the AFC, there's not really much to say. The NFC is a stronger conference when it comes to playoff time.
I agree.
And also the Tom Brady. I mean, come on. I don't think the Bucs are going to win the Super Bowl. We could see Tom Brady finally blow a tire in the playoffs like he did last year. I mean, he's 43 years old, but what he did yesterday is nothing short of spectacular. 350 plus yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, this guy, an ageless wonder. You can't say enough about him. Gronkowski again showed up yesterday. Mike Evans, a big game. The Bucs team is a fun team to watch. And hats off to Bruce Arians, who I have thought is a superb coach forever. Back when he was coaching the Indianapolis Colts, and when he took over for I can't think of his name now. The guy that had cancer, and he took over for him and just did a tremendous job. I really like this Bucs team. They're a lot of fun to watch. I just don't see them winning the playoffs. I think the Packers are going to represent the NFC this year. As time's gone on, I've watched Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams having a big game. They've got a running game in Green Bay, and their defense seems to improve every single week, and that's the sign of a champion team. But again, hats off to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers for taking the chance on Tom Brady, and here they go into the playoffs. And hey, you never know, 5-6 seed, they could make some noise. with all that. Caleb, who would have thought real quick as the time runs down, and I want to say one other fact. I didn't say it though. Kentucky lost 6 games in a row. They're 1-6 to start the season. I was listening to John Calipari whine last night about his Kentucky basketball team. Do you know, Caleb, it's pretty wild, but the last time Kentucky started 1-6 the season was 1926. Before that, 1911. The Kentucky faithful are not used to seeing a 1-6 Kentucky team when all their coach does is get one and dones. When it's a one and done, they're supposed to win that one year. Calipari's been a master at it, not this year. We'll talk about that in another show. But who would have thought that the game of the day today, if I was to tell you, Caleb, the game of the day at Week 16 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams, a 4-9-1 Eagles team and a 5-9 Cowboys team. Now, granted, Washington has the inside track on the division at 6-8 right now with the best record. The Giants are still in there too. All 4 teams with a week to go still have a chance to make the playoffs. And yet the team that makes it more than likely is going to be under 500. The Redskins are the only team that could potentially finish 500. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's first of all, the Packers-Eagles game is always a good game late in the season. It's one of the games that just it feels right. They have 2 great fan bases, Philadelphia and Dallas, for their respective. I hate all of them. Like as a fan of not those teams, I don't like them. The polarization of the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles is astronomical, right? But that makes for good TV. It makes for good competition. It makes for good December football in early January this year. But it's really fun to watch those teams play. Now, the fact that the NFC East is such a dumpster fire, and the fact that both these teams still have a chance to make the playoffs makes it even more interesting. Not good, but interesting for me to watch. I don't want either of these teams to waste my time in the playoffs because they stink. But if I'm being honest, I would love to see Dallas in the playoffs. With what they've gone through as a team, for Dak Prescott's sake, for the guys that are there, I would hope that they're the team that comes out of the NFC East. Just because I would love to see that. I would love to see Stephen A. have a heart attack over it on first take. But I like the kind of story that the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys have this year is unique and it's different. So I'm excited actually to watch this game.
Well, I'm going to tell you this.
I'm not excited, and I hope that the Washington Redskins win that division only because what a great story it would be for Alex Smith with that leg injury to come back and actually take the Washington Redskins to the playoffs would be miraculous.
But Haskins has to go to the strip club, so I don't think they're going to have a chance. So I don't know if they figured it out totally over there in Washington, but it would be a great story.
We got to real quickly just do the S&B with C, Silver and Black with Caleb. The Raiders yesterday ended their chance for a 2020 postseason run. Caleb, it was putrid. From the missed extra point to the horrible coaching decision at the end of the game to not try to push the ball in the end zone and get a touchdown to, again, a defense that just continues to let you down week in and week out. And then to the magic of Ryan Fitzmagic. And again, the beard comes off the bench to take this team to the playoffs in exciting. And how about that final throw with his head getting ripped off? Granted, it looked like God touched the ball because he threw it up in the air, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the SBFC, the Raiders eliminated for the playoffs. Like you said, they can't get in now mathematically. It sucks because I think they had a playoff team, at least especially offensively. They have a playoff team offensively. From a roster standpoint. But I would say that the season can't go out as anything more than disappointment. I would say that the Raiders, the situation there is not quite dire, but I think the direction that they're moving in on one side of the ball is the wrong way, and the other side is the right way. I think you look at that defense, it does not complement the offense at all. You look at the way that injuries have impacted their season. Their first round DB played, I think, 3 games, 4 games, and they've been decimated by injury all season long on that side of the ball. But I think there's still a window for the Raiders to get good or to be good. And I think the GM now, Mike Mayock, the question is posed, who's on the hot seat, John Gruden or Mayock? I think Mayock is more on the hot seat because the acquisitions of players and personnel that he's had so far have not been the right ones. I mean, Jonathan Abram and some of the draft picks, and I mean, even if you look at Ruggs, not the right pick. So the idea that I think the GM, is more on the hot seat as far as what he's done for the Raiders and how he can help moving forward. So offseason, time to start looking forward at what you can do offseason, acquire a better defense, because that's what you need right now.
And yeah, I see a GM on the hot seat too. Trust me right now. John Gruden's on the hot seat. Caleb, we're down to our picks. We're almost out of time, so we got to fly through this segment. We got less than a minute to go. We got to fly. I'm taking the Jaguars. Bears, 7.5-point favorites. They'll find a way to blow it because they're in the NFC North, which is terrible. Magnum's taking the Redskins, and he is giving up a point to the Panthers. That looks like a pretty good pick. Caleb, who do you got?
Go Pack, go. Go
He's
Pack,
taking
go.
the Pack.
I'm taking the Packers, the Vikings, Ryan Tannehill. They have a solid running game, but I think once the running game has to collapse because they're playing from behind, I think Ryan Tannehill is not the guy to get it done. But I'm just going with the Packers. I'm a Packer fan today.
Who do you got, Wiz?
Very quickly, I'll take the Cleveland Browns, but I will say also this is not a disappointing Raiders season. They actually exceeded my expectations. I said 6 wins, they'll get 7.
Damon, text me who your pick is. We'll put it in for the final week to see who wins the regular season. It's out of line. We're out of time. I want to thank Jennifer Metzger and Dylan Reese for having us down here at Kickers. My co-host Caleb Harron, Spencer doing his thing, and Damon back in the radio station. And don't forget, coming up right now, Pritch and Clay, Sunday football special, 9 to 11 here on Fox. We're out. Bye-bye.